Hello, guys. Welcome once again to Philosophy Online Lecture. We are still on Introduction to Metaphysics, and in this audio, we'll be talking about motion and permanence, the problem of motion and permanence. And this problem is arise from the fact that the various people or philosophers hold various view about motion and permanence. Right? Some say everything changes, while there are those who say that nothing changes, everything is permanent. Okay, so to the philosophers of motion, they say things change, and the only permanent thing is change. Okay, so to them, they believe that everything changes, and one of the major philosophers of this thought was Heraclitus. Now, to Heraclitus, Heraclitus was an ancient Greek philosopher. He said everything is in the state of flux, and he was also the one who propounded this popular phrase, "You can't step in the same river twice." Okay, now when he said you can't step into the same river twice, it really meant that if you plan to step into a flowing water, the moment you step into it and you remove your leg, then put it again, that water you've put your leg into before must have flown away. So it's not possible for you to step into the same river twice. Okay. Now, his disciple even went further to said you can't step in the same river once. That is, if you are seeing a flowing river, then you have it in mind that you want to step on a particular water, right? Now, before you put your leg, that one that you had in mind to step on must have flowed away. Okay, so that is to confirm that everything things are always changing. Now, even till date, this position is very, very popular. People say everything change is always constant. That is one of the popular phrase in this day. So Heraclitus' position was widely accepted, especially by the Pythagoreans. Okay, so we know there won't be anything without a an opposite view, right? So this is where we have permanence. Now, to the people in this school, believe that change is an illusion, that nothing changes. If we just assume that things changes, things do not change. Okay, so the major philosopher in this school was Parmenides of Elia, right? So Parmenides posited that there is nothing like becoming. Nothing comes in and out of being. That is, if the only thing that exists is being, and if we add anything to being, that thing must be when that thing is added to being, it doesn't change the fact that being is still being. So anything that comes into being, if that thing is something and it comes into being, it doesn't change being. Being remain being, right? Now, if nothing, which is the opposite of something, is added to being, it still doesn't change being. So being remain what it is. So that is his position. Okay. So, but the problem with Parmenides was that he didn't have enough points to back up his position. So because and his position was very, very uh you know you can't really have enough points to back this position, because many people in the world even till they believe that things changes, right? So at that point, when they said this, he didn't have enough position except for the one that I said. Okay, so because of this, it became a laughing stock, especially among the Pythagoreans. They laughed at his points that how can you argue against something that's glaring, that things changes. Okay, so uh, Parmenides became a laughing stock to the Pythagoreans, right? So it was until Zeno, his disciple, came to his aid, right? So Zeno was a disciple of Parmenides. It was also from the same village of Parmenides, that is earlier, that we mentioned earlier. And how did Zeno come to his aid? How was he able to prove Parmenides' point? He did this by producing convincing arguments using the Pythagoreans hypothesis against them. They were the one that was laughing at his master. So, in order to support his master, he used the position of the Pythagoreans against them. And then we want to look at three hypotheses of the Pythagoreans that Zeno used against them. The first hypothesis is the position of the Pythagoreans that any distance, no matter how small, is made up of infinite points. That is, any distance, like a distance from A to B, the distance there, no matter how long or short it is made up of infinite points. So Zeno said here that how okay, if you claim that the any distance is made up of infinite points and movement is possible, how is this movement from one point to the other point possible without infinite time, right? That is, it must require infinite time. If we claim that they require the distance at infinite point, then it must require infinite time. So it is not possible, right? Now, if it you say it's possible to move from one point to another, then we it will take eternity, because using infinite times mean you are taking forever. Infinite, infinite also mean eternity. Okay, so this was the first way that he attacked the Pythagoreans. Now, the second hypothesis of the Pythagorean that he attacked was that everything occupies space equal to itself. That is, if matter is in space. Now, any matter that is in space is occupying a space that is equal to itself. Now, let's take a look at this cycle that arrow is inside. The arrow now is inside that cycle, right? And that implies that the arrow cannot move out of that arrow because it is occupying a space that is equal to itself. So this shows that movement is actually impossible. This was the second argument position that Zeno used against the Pythagoreans. Okay. Now, the third hypothesis of the Pythagoreans that Zeno argued against was the hypothesis of everything is made up of units. Okay, so here Zeno used various paradox to respond to them. Here we'll be looking at three of those paradox. Now, the first one is the paradox of the Achilles and tortoise race, guys, right? Okay, so in this paradox, he said, let us imagine the Achilles. The Achilles was one of the fast, it was in fact the fastest animal in ancient Greece as at that time. So, and tortoise is very, very slow. So he now said, let's imagine a race between the Achilles and tortoise, right? uh, so because the tortoise is slow, the tortoise is allowed to start first, and when the tortoise gets to a particular point, the Achilles will then start. Okay, so Zeno now said it will be impossible for the Achilles to catch up with the tortoise, because as at the time he is trying to get to the point that tortoise has gotten, the started, the tortoise would have moved to another point. Okay, so and because every point between every point there are infinite distance, that means that race, it will require infinite time for the Achilles to meet up with tortoise, and this is impossible because using infinite time will require eternity. So that race will continue to till eternity. The same is said with the second paradox, which is that nobody can run a from one point of a stadium to the other. Okay, so he still use the same point of infinite point and infinite time. Okay, So the third paradox is that of the flying arrow. Here he used the position of the Pythagoras, that everything occupies space equal to itself. So Zeno said that uh, if everything occupies space equal to itself, then at each point which the arrow is flying, it is occupying a space equal to itself, and at each point, each unit, right, it is actually resting because it is occupying a space to itself. So the movement of an arrow that we are seeing, the arrow is actually occupying a space equal to itself. So with all this argument, the Pythagoras could not respond. They became dumb. Okay, so Zeno was actually able to come to the aid of his master Parmenides. And so with that, we have come to the conclusion on motion and permanence problem. Okay, so those are the two major arguments on it. Thank you so much for listening. Please kindly subscribe and turn on notification. God bless you, and also share with your colleagues. Thank you.